let's bring in this guy, Joey Alfieri and his beautiful complexion in Montreal. See, he's all rested. He had a weekend off, a bye week. Comment ça va, Joey?
I'm living the dream. It's nice to be on with you, and you look younger every time I see you.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's stress-free living, man. I'm sure you can relate because you guys finished first. You've had your feet up for 6 weeks, man. What's the vibe going into the East Final this weekend?
Yeah, it's funny. Like nobody's had their feet up here for 6 weeks, Roddy. Let me tell you, even last week, everybody was here at work. And I'm not just talking about the marketing people or ticket people or corporate sponsor people. I mean, the players were here every day. They were on the field 3 times. It was full practices. They're preparing for Ottawa and Toronto. So nobody's been taking it easy here. Even I know it's been, they clinched in, I think it was late September. So everyone's kind of pedaled to the metal. I think you saw that in the final regular season game against Winnipeg. I think everyone took it especially seriously, and they played really, really well in that game. So, nobody's taking any time off, including me.
You know, I'll be honest, I say that facetiously, and you know that because that's what winners do. They grind. But it warms my heart to see these stories out of Montreal that say sellout crowd at Molson McGill, Percival Molson McGill, sellout crowd. Like it's just regular now. The bad days just seem to be a memory, and I'm sure you don't think about them much because the good days are definitely back. Am I right?
Yeah, no, the good days are definitely back. A lot of hard work has gone into it on and off the field. And yeah, I think this is going to, assuming this one looks like it's going to sell out, obviously, as well. The East Final, I think this is going to be 4 in a row and 5 out of 10 if you want to count the preseason game. So the preseason game didn't sell out, but I mean, if you want to count the amount of sellouts they had from the beginning of the year to the playoffs, I mean, I believe that's 5 now. So or they're on their way to 5. But no, things are going well. It's funny, like I had an Alouettes toque on in my condo building in the elevator coming up from the parking lot, and somebody stopped me and asked me on Saturday, "Hey, Alouettes don't play today, right?" And so I'm having conversations on walks. I'm having conversations in the building, and that's just something that never, would have happened before. So more and more people are interested. It's heading in the right direction. Obviously, having excellent leadership has helped here. Ownership has been particularly strong here since Mr. Pelledo took over. So all that stuff, plus the team doing incredibly well, you bring it all together and feels a lot like the early 2000s. I'll tell you that.
That's kind of amazing when you say that, because we follow our teams no matter what. But for everybody else, you got to win. You got to win to engage them. And Montreal clearly is no different. I mean, there's a deep love for the Owls, but people aren't going to buy tickets unless you're winning. So it's here. And let me ask you, before I get into the nuts and bolts, how's Cody Fajardo's Francais coming along? Has he learned any since being there?
He's good. It's funny, like so I came up with this idea where, I write out a phrase on a whiteboard and I go around the locker room and I have the guys read it. It's a phrase or a city in Quebec or just, whatever, something that'll be tricky to say. And they've all, including Cody, they've all participated and they've all gotten better and better as the season went on. But you got to understand, like Jason Moss put a priority on this from day one, even though he's not from here. Played here very briefly. I think he really got a sense of how important the French language and French culture is, even to Anglo-Quebecers like me. So, every player has to know, non-negotiable, has to know how to say their number in French. And some of them are simple. Some of them are a little bit more complex. But Cody and the rest of the gang, I mean, they've taken this very, very seriously, especially since Jason Moss came on board. So they're actually doing really well. I'm not going to say that it's a team full of bilingual players, but it's guys that make a really big effort, and it's really nice to see, and it's appreciated.
Cody A. Set. It ain't that hard. I know they're football players, but I'm like, my God, I hope they can figure that out. So, listen, the storyline for this week's pretty simple to me. It's the Chad Kelly Redemption Tour, and I'll be cheering for you guys, but it sells itself, I think.
Sure. I mean, I'm looking at a bunch of other stuff too. I understand that they're probably going to be upset about the way it went for them last year, and they probably want to come in here and do the same thing to the Alouettes that the Alouettes did to them in the East Final in Toronto last year. But I think I can tell you, I watched these guys practice every single day this year that they were on the field, and I've seen it, at the end of the season as well, and they're taking this very seriously. There's no talk of last year here. There's no talk of repeating even. It's really about going out there and winning the championship this year. So, I know they've played 3 close games this year. I know Toronto's run the ball particularly well against Montreal earlier this year, and when they do that, they've had success. But those were 3 very hard-fought games, and I anticipate it's going to be the same thing. And listen, I wouldn't be opposed to the Chad Kelly redemption tour, if you want to call it that, ending on Saturday. I'd be okay with that.
This may be a dumb question, but I'm good at those. Are the Argos Montreal's number 1 rival, or is it somebody else in that division or even in the whole league?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, they've played a lot of playoff games now. I think there's a lot of people that would like to see, myself included, that would like to see the Ottawa-Montreal rivalry develop a little bit more. It's just the teams haven't been good at the same time since the Red Blacks have been back. And now this year, finally, it looked like it was going to be Montreal-Ottawa, and it's not. I would tell you that probably, I think the hardcore Alouette fan probably detested the Tiger Cats most up until recently, but the matchup has been so one-sided lately. And listen, it's not to beat up on Hamilton because it was very one-sided and in Hamilton's favor not too long ago. But so I would tell you, by process of elimination, I think there's been some flip-flop. I think it was Hamilton for a long time, but I would tell you now, the Argos they come here, they do a lot of talking. They've won back-to-back years in Montreal when a lot of teams haven't been able to do that. So yeah, I think right now, present day, it's probably Toronto. Yeah.
Well, it does change, and that's why I wanted to ask you, because I'm not in your shoes, but I'm really happy for you, Joey, because I know what you guys went through there with a franchise, and I also know what it feels like to win. Those are good days, so I hope it continues. And let me ask you this about Les Habitants, Bleu Blanc Rouge. I got a lot of friends who are Habs fans. You've got an eye on them, obviously. What's your take on where they're at?
Yeah, look, I know there's a lot of people hitting the panic button. There's a lot of people that are upset with Martin St. Louis, but a lot of those people, Roddy, they wanted this rebuild, and the Canadians are right in the middle of it. I think there's been so much positive that has come out in the way, the players that they've been able to draft and how there's been that influx of talent in the the prospect pool. I know it hasn't always been pretty this season. I think they've given up 6 goals or more in like 4 games already this year, but there's going to be tough nights. But, you can't help but feel, watching the Canadians, even though the results aren't there in the here and now, it's really hard, or you have to be pretty negative to not see that it's headed in the right direction. I think Jeff Gordon, Kent Hughes have done a great job. I think Marty St. Louis has done a really good job too. I know game to game, there's things you can criticize. Why is this guy on the power play? Why is that guy on the power play? Why is this guy on in overtime? Game to game, you can criticize any coach. But I think, big picture, I think there are people that think outside the box. And even though the results probably aren't where most fans want them right now, I think that a lot of people see the big picture and where it's headed. And you can't help but feel positive in that regard, because it feels like they've turned this thing around and it's headed in the right direction as well.
Good analysis. You should be on the radio. You ever thought about that?
There's a past life.
Yeah, I know. For all of us. All right. Joey, good luck this weekend. Thanks for the time, and I'll see you at Grey Cup.
Yeah, that's the plan. Thanks, Roddy. Appreciate all of you guys having me on, and hopefully we can talk again in Vancouver.
You bet, pal. Joey Alfieri, Alouettes reporter from Alouettes.com and all their social media.